Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Ringworm, Seeing Through Fire, out August 18th on Nuclear Blast. The album has 11 tracks, 31 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio album. They are an American hardcore band. And as you would expect from a hardcore band releasing an album with 11 songs in 31 minutes, there are no ebbs and flows on this record. It's straight to the point. What you see is what you get. Compact, balanced album, aggressive, intense from start to end. That is the fluidity of this record. Maybe I shouldn't say from start to end because the last song on the album breaks the mold of this record. Playing God is a very different song both musically and vocally. Musically it feels a little bit more mellow. It feels like it loses a little bit of the steam that this entire record has up until that point. And then vocally it's more of a spoken word style approach, and more of a Henry Rollins style track, and both musically and vocally actually. So it doesn't fit with the DNA of the rest of the record. It doesn't really fit with the other 10 songs. Now, if you look at it as a way of closing off the album and allowing the record to kind of take its time until it ends, it works because it kind of has that process, it kind of has that idea, and it kind of gives that vibe as the record is ending. But I feel for an album that has this sort of intensity, that has this sort of aggression, both musically and vocally, you almost want the album to finish with a song that turns the overall vibe of the record from 10 all the way to 11. I think it would meet the expectations of the listener better. It would be a better way of closing an album that has this design, that has this soundscape, and I think would make the album experience a little bit more complete. This song, the way it sits at the end, and it could not sit anywhere else by the way, but the way it sits at the end, I'm just not quite sure that it is the right approach in order to have the listener return back to its origins and listen to the album all over again. It doesn't leave you with that feeling of continuation, it gives you a feeling of finality. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, my god, this is a punchy record. It's definitely a guitar-centric album. The guitars drive the sound, they drive the experience, and more often than not, they're gonna sound very rugged, but also very penetrating. The guitar sound on this album is not fat, it's not thick, it doesn't have depth. It actually feels quite narrow at times, and because it feels quite narrow and has that ruggedness to it, that's why it cuts so deep. That is why it is so penetrating. Having said that, there are still some chunky riffs. There are still some groovy elements to those chunkier riffs that kind of break the mold a little bit, but because you always have that penetrating guitar sound either in the forefront or in the background of those riffs, or those riffs kind of break through that sound experience momentarily, and then that penetrating experience comes right back again, you never are able to completely walk away from it. You have those pockets of more consistent heaviness, but you also have pockets of more consistent outburst when it comes to the solos. The solos on this album are actually really good, and I like the production behind them because they don't match the DNA of the existing guitar sound that the tracks have. They don't match the chunkier side of the guitar sound. They don't match the more driven, penetrating sound of the guitar sound. They come a little bit off the books, if you will, as far as the experience, and this gives you 3 different styles, 3 different approaches, 3 different sound experiences within the guitar sound alone, allowing the album to have a little bit more life, allowing the album to feel a little bit more energetic. But the quality of the solo speaks for itself. The impact that it has is important in the overall design. And like I said, this is a very guitar-centric, guitar-focused album, which then relegates the drums and bass to a secondary role. I would say the bass into more than a secondary role, but definitely the drums into a secondary role. When you listen to this album, you're going to see the drums behind the guitars, allowing the guitars to be in the forefront, to be the drivers of the experience in parallel with the vocals, but the drums sitting a little bit more back. This doesn't mean that the drums don't have heaviness. This doesn't mean that the drums don't have power. It's just that they don't overpower the experience. They allow the guitars to be the ones that set the tone for what these songs are, and the drums are there more for a sense of consistency in the back end in order to fill in the tracks a little bit better. Vocally, it delivers. It's an album that has that same sort of intensity that the sound represents really well, represented in the vocal approach and the vocal style. I enjoyed some of the backing vocals, some of the layers that they did. It gives this album a sense of a live performance. And when you look at the sound itself, the ruggedness of the sound also has elements of a live album. When you bring these two worlds together as one, you create almost an old school hardcore style sounding record. Not overly produced, feeling a little bit more raw, feeling a little bit more rugged across all the different elements, and that ruggedness brings that sense of live performance into the table, into the forefront, and that's exactly what this album is. Almost feels like you're listening to a live set. It's designed almost like a live set, with that song at the end, perhaps the soundtrack that's playing as people are cleaning up the stage. That's kind of how the whole record is put together. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Seeing Through Fire. This is the opening song on the album, and it sets the tone for the record, as an opening song should. Now, what I love about this song, or what I thought was really interesting about this song, is that the first minute and a half, it's pretty much an instrumental intro. But it's an instrumental intro that's actually part of the song itself. And I enjoy this design, I enjoy this approach, because it gives you a sense of both worlds, and both worlds working together as one. If that intro was separated from the track, I think most people would just jump into the track and then miss a little bit of the leeway or the leadway in terms of how the song actually goes about. It would be like starting a movie 30 minutes in and then wondering how the hell did you got to that point. So this built-in intro works really well for the record, and it works really well for the song. A track that feels rugged, as the whole album does, that sounds penetrating, as the whole album does, that has great vocals that match the aggression and intensity of the sound. There are some layers, there are some texture in the sound as well as in the vocals, building a great experience, a unique design. There's no other song on this record that has that sort of built-in intro connected with the overall song design and song structure. So this song sets the tone for the album. It works as an intro. It works great as an opening track. I really enjoy this track all around. Next we have Death Hoax. Man, this is off to the races. From the moment it starts, there's no foreplay. It's just straight to the point, both musically and vocally. A track that feels like it's always running away from you, and you're just trying to catch up with it. There are some heavier, thick riff sounds that break through the more driven, the faster tempo penetrating experience that this song has. And when those thick riffs come in, that riffage kind of slows down the track and allows you to kind of catch your breath and perhaps catch up to the song, which is really important so that you don't feel completely detached from the experience. I love the guitar sound throughout this entire track, specifically when it comes to those thicker riffs. I just love how it feels, how it comes across. It has also a great leeway into the solos. The solos are really good, something that's consistent with the entire album, but it's a complete song and a certified banger. When you look at the momentum of the track, when you look at the slowdowns and how thicker the guitars come across in those moments, allowing you to catch your breath, allowing you to catch up with the song, like I said, and then having two solos that work really well, not only in expanding the song, but giving it a little bit more texture, giving it a little bit more life. You couldn't ask for a better track all around. Last but definitely not least, Unavoidable Truth. The bass, the opening bass really sold me on this track, and the fact that they were able to allow it to stay in, at least there's an aroma of that bass coming through, it's really important for the tone and for the delivery that this song brings. It's an absolute slam dance style track. This is your prototypical hardcore song. When I think about New York scene hardcore of late 80s, early 90s, this song is what I'm thinking of. It has that ability to be a great slam dance song and the ability to also allow you to headbang to it at the exact same time. It alternates those two momentums. It alternates the slam dancing with the hand banging. This creates great movement. It's a song that vocally is also very layered, which gives a live experience to the track. All around, it has all the right condiments. It has a great solo as well. It just feels like a live track transported into a studio format with an old school approach, with an old school design, with an old school execution. This is it. Ringworm with Seeing Through Fire, out August 18th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.